What if I told you that 9 people received a miracle and still missed the best part of it? It sounds contradictory, almost controversial, but that's exactly what this story reveals. Many believe the greatest sign of God is a visible answer, when in reality, the greatest work happens where no one sees. There's a hidden detail in this account that completely changes how you understand faith, blessings, and even your spiritual life. And the question is, have you been seeking the miracle, or what is greater than it? Today you're going to discover profound truths most people read and never notice. Lessons that can transform the way you see struggles, answers, and gratitude. So subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because every message here is designed to strengthen your faith and open your spiritual eyes. And stay with me until the end, because the final lesson is the most surprising and probably the one that will speak most directly to your heart. The first lesson we learn from the healing of the 10 lepers is that pain brings different people together. Those men lived isolated from society, rejected by the system, and forgotten by people. Yet they stood together among themselves. Suffering tore down walls that ordinary life would never tear down. Pain has this silent power to level everyone on the inside. And if you pay attention, you'll notice it still does that today. When pain arrives, titles don't matter, status doesn't impress, and appearances can't sustain anyone. What remains is the raw reality that everyone is fragile. Those men were different in origin, culture, and story, but they shared one thing: need. And shared need creates deep connections. Connections that aren't born from similarity, but from experience. And intense experiences forge bonds that are hard to break. Life repeatedly shows that hard moments bring unlikely people together. Crises form alliances that easy times would never produce. This happens because suffering reveals what comfort hides: our dependence. No one likes to admit it, but it's true. When everything is fine, pride speaks loudly. When pain arrives, the soul speaks even louder. There is a spiritual reason behind this. Certain situations are allowed not only to shape someone, but to connect people. What looks like isolation may actually be preparation for communion. What looks like loss may be the construction of a bond. And many times, God unites hearts before He changes circumstances. Because relationship comes before miracle. The 10 were together before they were healed. That is not a detail, it is a principle. First came unity, then came transformation. First came connection, then came divine intervention. This shows that the process had already begun before they even realized it. And perhaps processes have already begun in your life without you noticing. The second lesson we learn from the healing of the 10 lepers is that recognizing your condition is the beginning of healing. They didn't hide the disease. They didn't disguise the pain. They didn't pretend to be well. They knew exactly who they were and how they were. That awareness was decisive. Because no one is restored while insisting on denying reality. Many people remain stuck, not because there is no way out, but because there is no recognition. Denial paralyzes transformation. Pretending strength blocks help, disguising wounds, postpones healing. Real change only exists where truth is acknowledged, and acknowledged truth requires humility. The lepers cried out in a loud voice. It wasn't a timid request or a symbolic gesture. It was the cry of people who knew they needed help, and that detail changes everything. Because whoever recognizes need has already taken the step many resist taking. The first step of restoration always happens inside. What you hide isn't treated. What you deny isn't healed. What you pretend not to feel still exists. God acts where there is sincerity. He intervenes where there is truth. He transforms where there is surrender. Admitting weakness doesn't diminish anyone. It positions them. Recognizing limits doesn't shame. It frees. Confessing need doesn't expose defeat. It reveals wisdom. That's exactly what those men did. And that's what opens space for the supernatural to act. The third lesson we learn from the healing of the 10 lepers is that Jesus responds to a sincere cry. They cried out for mercy without formality, without performance, without religious appearance. It was a real, urgent, truthful cry. And heaven always responds when the voice is real. God does not ignore sincere hearts. Distance didn't prevent the answer. Their condition didn't limit divine power. The state they were in didn't push compassion away. This reveals a deep spiritual principle. It is not perfection that attracts God. It is sincerity. It is not performance that moves heaven. It is truth. And truth always receives a response. Their cry wasn't elegant, but it was genuine. It wasn't elaborate, but it was real. It wasn't religious, but it was full of faith. And that was enough to draw Christ's attention. Because he doesn't respond to spiritual appearance, he responds to a broken heart. And when you understand that, you begin to realize the next stage of this story holds an even more surprising lesson. The fourth lesson we learn from the healing of the 10 lepers is that God's instruction may seem unusual. Jesus did not touch them at that moment, did not instantly declare healing, and did not give an immediate visible sign. Instead, he gave an unexpected command to go show themselves to the priests. From a human perspective, that sounded illogical because they were still sick. Nothing had changed outwardly, no symptom had disappeared. Even so, the instruction was given, showing that God does not always explain before he leads. Heaven often moves differently from human logic. First comes direction, then comes understanding. First comes obedience, then comes the miracle. This pattern repeats throughout the spiritual journey and reveals a profound principle. Whoever waits to understand everything before acting will rarely experience divine action. Faith begins exactly where explanation ends. It manifests when reason can no longer guarantee certainty, and it is in that territory that the extraordinary begins to happen. If those men had decided to wait for proof, nothing would have happened. If they had demanded visible signs before moving, they would have remained exactly as they were. But they chose to obey without guarantees. That simple decision opened the way for something extraordinary. True faith does not depend on evidence to begin. It depends on trust strong enough to take the first step. And that step is always the dividing line between stagnation and transformation. The fifth lesson we learn from the healing of the 10 lepers is that healing happens along the path of obedience. The account reveals something remarkable. They were not healed before obeying. They were healed while obeying. The miracle did not happen in stillness. It happened in movement. This shows that certain divine answers do not come before the journey, but during it. There are spiritual processes that only manifest when someone decides to move forward, and only those who walk discover this. There is a clear spiritual principle here. Movement precedes manifestation. If they had stayed still analyzing the command, nothing would have changed. If they had waited for a physical sign before leaving, they would have remained sick. Transformation was tied to the decision to go. This shows that many answers are not at the starting point, but along the road. The path of obedience is often the very place where the miracle occurs, and only those who walk it find that out. God usually reveals stages gradually. Spiritual direction is progressive, not instant. Clarity appears along the way, not before it. It is like a road, lit by headlights. You don't see the entire path, only enough for the next step. But when you move, the light follows. When you stop, everything seems dark. This pattern shows that action in faith activates things that are still invisible. Obedience releases processes that the eyes cannot yet see. Movement unlocks promises that already exist but have not yet manifested. Action opens doors that were ready, simply waiting for a step of trust. Whoever moves in faith enters new realities. Whoever remains still stays in the same scenario. And that difference is not luck, but response. The sixth lesson we learn from the healing of the 10 lepers is that true faith acts, not merely believes. Those men did not make speeches about faith. They demonstrated faith through action. Their belief had movement, decision, and response. This shows that faith is not only something felt or spoken. Faith is something practiced, and practice always reveals what truly exists inside someone. There is a clear difference between saying you trust and living trusting. Words may convince people, but actions reveal convictions. Speech can sound impressive, but attitude proves reality. Genuine faith appears in daily behavior, in silent choices, and in unseen decisions. It manifests when someone acts without guarantees, and that is precisely what makes it powerful. Faith is not a passing emotion, it is a firm position. It is not inspiring theory, it is consistent practice. It is not a momentary feeling, it is a continuous decision. Whoever truly believes, moves. Whoever truly trusts, obeys. Whoever truly hopes, advances. Because faith that stands still is not living faith. It is only intention without action. When someone understands this principle, something shifts inside, perception widens, and vision becomes clearer. The person begins to notice that many answers were already on the way, simply waiting for a step of trust. They start to realize that miracles often follow obedient movement, and that doors tend to open for those who decide to walk. And it is exactly this realization that prepares the heart for the next lesson this story still holds. The seventh lesson we learn from the healing of the 10 lepers is that not everyone returns to give thanks. The text reveals something surprising and, at the same time, deeply human. 10 were healed, but only 1 came back. All received the miracle, but only 1 recognized the source. This exposes a truth that crosses generations. Blessings are easily celebrated, yet the one who blesses is often forgotten. And that difference reveals the condition of the heart. Most people rejoice in the blessing, but do not develop a relationship with the one who blesses. They receive, move on, and rarely look back with gratitude. This happens because it is natural for human beings to focus on the present and forget the process. Relief makes many forget the rescue, and when the need passes, the memory often passes too. This pattern continues repeating every day. The 9 went on their way, perhaps happy, perhaps relieved, perhaps euphoric, but they went. Only 1 chose to return. This detail is not small, it is revealing. Because returning requires awareness. Returning requires sensitivity. Returning requires recognition. Gratitude is not an automatic reaction, it is an intentional choice. Whoever does not choose to be thankful eventually becomes accustomed to receiving. And when someone gets used to receiving, they begin to think they deserve everything. This is one of the most silent dangers of the human heart. A blessing received can produce humility, or it can produce pride. The one who returned showed he had something different inside. He was not just happy about the healing, he was aware of grace. That awareness changes everything. Because whoever recognizes grace begins to value what was received even more, and that perception opens deeper spiritual doors. The 8th lesson we learn from the healing of the 10 lepers is that gratitude is worship. The man didn't just say, "Thank you." He glorified God out loud and fell down. His gratitude had expression, intensity, and surrender. This shows that true gratitude is never silent on the inside. It overflows. Worship is not only singing. It is not only speaking beautiful words. Worship is the response of someone who understands what they received. It is the public recognition of a divine intervention. It is the visible manifestation of a touched heart. And that is exactly what that man demonstrated. He did not return walking casually. He returned glorifying. He did not return indifferent. He returned surrendered. This reveals that genuine gratitude always changes posture. Whoever is truly grateful positions themselves differently. Because gratitude transforms not only words, but attitudes. There is a difference between politeness and spiritual gratitude. Politeness says, "Thank you," out of habit. Spiritual gratitude glorifies because it recognizes a miracle. One is social protocol. The other is inner revelation, and that difference is clearly perceived by God. When someone understands the magnitude of what they received, they cannot remain the same. The heart bows, the soul yields, the voice rises. Gratitude becomes an unavoidable expression. It is not effort, it is overflow. It is not obligation, it is response. The 9th lesson we learn from the healing of the 10 lepers is that the grateful recognize the source of the miracle. The text highlights that the one who returned was a foreigner. This carries deep meaning. The very one considered an outsider was the only one who came back. The unlikely one was the perceptive one. This reveals a striking spiritual principle. Often those who feel least deserving are the ones who most recognize grace. Meanwhile, those who consider themselves deserving tend to normalize blessings. A sense of entitlement reduces gratitude. Humility, however, intensifies it. The foreigner understood something the others did not. The healing was not merely an event, it was a gift. It was not only a solution, it was favor. It was not only deliverance, it was mercy. And whoever sees mercy always responds with reverence, because they understand they received what they could never produce on their own. When someone begins to recognize the origin of blessings, life changes perspective. The focus stops being only the miracle and becomes the one who performed it. The heart stops celebrating only the result and begins honoring the source. And it is exactly here that this story starts revealing an even deeper contrast. The 10th lesson we learn from the healing of the 10 lepers is that not everyone who receives blessings receives salvation. All 10 were physically healed, but only one heard words that revealed something greater than healing. He was saved. This shows that a miracle is not the same as spiritual transformation. It is possible to experience divine intervention and still not develop a relationship with God. A blessing may reach a life, but only true faith reaches the soul. Many people want what God can give, but they do not want God Himself. They seek solutions, but not communion. They want help, but not the Lord. This difference is subtle outwardly, yet enormous inwardly, because receiving something from God does not mean walking with God. The 9 received the benefit and continued on their way. The one returned and encountered something greater than the benefit. This reveals a powerful spiritual contrast. Some people chase miracles. Others seek God. And the destination of those two paths is not the same. Miracles can change circumstances. Salvation changes destiny. Miracles can relieve temporary pain. Salvation transforms eternity. Miracles are signs of divine power. Salvation is proof of relationship with Him. Whoever seeks only the blessing stops at the experience. Whoever seeks the Lord enters a journey. An experience is momentary. A journey is continuous. And it is that continuity that reveals who truly understood what happened. The 11th lesson we learn from the healing of the 10 lepers is that the faith that gives thanks is the faith that saves. When Jesus told the man who returned that his faith had saved him, He showed that there was something different about that response. It was not merely emotional gratitude. It was spiritual recognition. It was living faith. The others had a miracle. He had an encounter. The others received healing. He received a declaration. The others returned to normal life. He stepped into a transformed life. Because his gratitude revealed something profound. He understood who was standing before him. Saving faith is not only believing that God can act, it is recognizing who He is. It is not merely expecting intervention, it is surrendering to authority. It is not only trusting power, it is submitting to presence. That man's gratitude showed that he did not want only what Jesus could do, he wanted Jesus Himself. And that difference changes everything. Because whoever seeks only benefits, drifts away after receiving. But whoever seeks relationship draws closer. There is a decisive point here. Faith that only asks remains shallow. Faith that gives thanks goes deeper. One sees God as a resource, the other sees God as Lord, and only one of them leads to salvation. The 12th lesson we learn from the healing of the 10 lepers is that the greatest miracle is spiritual. The physical healing was extraordinary, but it was not the greatest event in that story. The greatest miracle was invisible to the eyes, the salvation of the one who returned. Because a healed body will one day grow old, but a saved soul crosses eternity. Many people spend their entire lives searching for temporary solutions. They want immediate relief, quick answers, visible changes. Yet they ignore the deepest transformation they could ever experience, the one that does not end when earthly life ends, the one that lasts forever. The world celebrates what is visible. God values what is eternal. The world is impressed by the outward. God works in the inward. The world measures success by the present moment. God measures by the final destiny. When someone understands this, priorities change. The heart aligns. Desires reorganize. The pursuit stops being only for results and becomes a pursuit of transformation. And it is exactly at this point that the message of this story reaches the deepest level it can reveal. This story doesn't end in the footsteps of those men. It continues in yours. After everything that has been revealed, the question is no longer what happened to them, but what is happening inside you right now. Which of the 10 have you been in your journey? The one who receives and moves on, or the one who receives, returns, and surrenders? Because true transformation begins when the heart decides to come back. Perhaps you realized that this is not just about miracles, but about relationship. It is not only about blessings, but about recognizing their source. God is still calling people who don't want only answers, but presence, not only help, but communion. And whenever someone responds to that call, something eternal begins to be born inside. That is the kind of change that does not depend on circumstances. Today is a quiet yet powerful invitation. Turn your heart back to God, not with formality, but with sincerity. Not with appearance, but with truth. He still responds to a genuine cry, still honors faith that moves, and still transforms those who choose to draw near. And whoever walks that path discovers that the greatest miracle is not what happens around them, it is what happens within. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these lessons spoke most deeply to your heart? Write it in the comments, because your answer might awaken something in someone else's life too. And if this message touched you in any way, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you can keep learning truths that strengthen faith, expand vision, and transform your walk.